What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and another Outriders video. We're back at Pyro again, specifically looking at Eruption and the Lava Lich set today. We're trying to create a build that creates as much damage as possible from the Eruption skill, which is one of my favorites in the game. It doesn't get nearly enough love, and this build definitely does help it shine as a boss killing machine, but also being surprisingly good at dealing with large rooms of trash at the same time. Now I throw phaser in here as well because I'm a complete degenerate, and this actually just gives you a little bit more reach and helps you to hit stuff through walls and everything like that, because there are also ways for you to ramp up phaser in this build. So in a way you kind of get the best of both worlds here. I myself am a phaser and eruption heathen. I love both of those skills on the pyro a lot, so combining them into one build that is actually functional and actually does work was a big not only challenge but also a reward for myself. And I really enjoy playing this. Honestly, we probably have to admit at this point in time that pyromancer is probably the class out of the four that is best positioned after Worldslayer came out. Personally, I think that it's the class with the most opportunities for different ways to build, where you can essentially make basically every skill in the pyromancer's repertoire valid, viable, workable in a build. But that's mostly not to do with the actual skill itself, but due to the way in which we can ramp damage with the pyromancer. The pyromancer has long, at least in my mind, been thought of as the mage of the game in a way. So obviously builds that focus around AP and everything like that are really going to shine here. But specifically the pyromancer has in its arsenal access to convection, which gives you super low cooldowns on these skills which deal so much damage. And then that combined with the ramp up capability that you have with something like Mage's Rage and Fortress means that, in my opinion, honestly, you can actually make almost anything work for pyromancer right now. Now, that doesn't take anything away from the overall strength of Eruption, and of course boosted by the Lava Lich set, which makes it deal more damage, and then the right choices in the PAX Tree past convection as well as in your talent tree, or your skill tree rather, still means that you can push out massive eruptions. And this is really good, like I said, for playing Trials of Umfufu and getting through to the second arbiter and taking that arbiter down super fast. When it comes to playing this in expeditions, it works really well as well, just because of the circumference of the eruption effect, and due to the fact that you have this additional poke with phaser, which I have in the build here, as well as the lockdown capability of Ash Blast, which helps out your teammates as well with landing headshots and, you know, blocking damage and all of that sort of thing, plus also just in general boosting damage. So all in all, I would say that this is a very group friendly build, and people are really going to enjoy these massive eruptions that you put up all over the place, except for, I guess, firepower classes. This tends to like sort of clog their aim and everything like that. But I would say on the other side, the good thing about that is shit's usually dead and there's nothing left for them to shoot in any case. And when it comes to the actual build itself, we'll do the thing that we always do. We'll look at weapons, then the armor, we'll look at the skills, we'll talk about the rotation, and then we'll go class tree, PAX Tree, and last but not least, we'll look at Ascension Choices that can help you deal more damage or survive, you know, some damage. Now, when it comes to the weapons itself, for me, I essentially pack what I call a ramp up weapon, and then I pack what I call just a normal mobbing, trash clearing, just moving through the map weapon. In this case, both of those weapons happen to be Heir to the Desert, and as always, please don't concern yourself with the transmog too much. I transmog my items like this so I don't accidentally delete them. But we are talking about the Lava Lich set here, of course, and I went full on fucking degenerate and just used 5 pieces of Lava Lich because, you know, it is what it is. But like I said, when we're talking about the weapons here, I am using 2 different Heir to the Deserts. My ramp up Heir to the Desert has Sandstorm on, which doesn't really matter, but it has Mage's Rage and Fortress on, which is fantastic. This is the ramp up combo that you want. This means that yes, you do have to land some crits, but the point is, by the time you proc Fortress, you will have at least 2 to possibly 3 crits from Mage's Rage, which just overall increases your anomaly power by a shitload. Now, this also has armor pierce on it, which again factors into another ramp up mechanic that we are also using on this build. So where we translate armor piercing into resistance piercing, which then translates into anomaly power. So overall, this is the ramp up that we're talking about. And this is a very common build style at the moment in Pyro, where essentially combat has a ramp up phase and then like a damage dumping phase. And this is very much in line with that. Then when we're talking about the group clear sort of weapon, over here I use an Heir to the Desert, but I use Deathronome on here and I use Firestorm. Firestorm is just really good at locking down areas and having that beam continuously just apply burn damage and deal damage to enemies. It's fantastic. It's really, really good. And Detronome at the moment right now is, at least in my testing and in my experience, is kind of bugged. So how Detronome is supposed to work is, as you cycle through your skills, it needs to switch from giving you anomaly power to only giving you firepower bonus and whatnot. But at the moment right now, it kind of just gives you that the whole time. It gives you both bonuses the entire time. So probably at some point down the line this will be fixed. It means that the mod isn't actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, and therefore it's a bug. But at the moment right now, we capitalize on that additional anomaly power that we get there, because again, as we are clearing trash, this is just for us to throw out abilities and deal a little bit more damage. The pistol doesn't really matter, even though on here I do like to use a something that I can poke with from far away. So this also has Firestorm on it, but it also gives me access to weakness trap. As I understand it from sort of, you know, watching content on the internet and general discussions and all of that, there seems to be a problem with weakness at the moment right now, that either it's not staying on enemies nearly enough or it's not being applied correctly, which is a huge fucking bummer. But hopefully that's something that they address down the line. Now, as mentioned, when we get to the armor itself, this is 100% Lava Lich, fat Lava Lich 5 pieces. And on here, we are looking for pieces that give us anomaly power, and any kind of cooldown reduction is good. Status power is also good because it makes your Ash Blast last really long. Enemies stay in Ash for super long. You deal more damage against stuff that's Ash, so, you know, bonus. But on here we have Ashen Champion. This is a boost that we get for phaser. This means that it inflicts ash on enemies instead of burn when we hit them with the phaser, and each enemy that is hit by the phaser boosts your anomaly power by 20% for 10 seconds, and this can stack up to 5 times. If you hit 5 dudes, that's 100% additional AP. Then we have no resistance against the fortified on here, which is the combo that I mentioned. So it uses 2 mods to essentially translate armor piercing through resistance piercing into anomaly power. We have Danger Close on here, which says that it grants 6% anomaly power bonus for each enemy in close range. Now, generally speaking, stuff doesn't make it to you in close range, but this does mean that if you get crowded by a whole bunch of enemies, you are going to up to 24% additional anomaly power, depending on how many enemies it is. And this can help you kind of like deal that extra crush damage to get stuff out of your face. But in a perfect world, I would potentially want something else here that just flat out gives me more anomaly power, or gives me more survivability, or perhaps enhances one of my skills. So this is not, I wouldn't call it a dead mod. Certainly we can get some use out of it, especially if enemies get close to you, but it's not necessary to the build. Then when we get over to the chest itself, we have Death Sentence on here. We use Ash Blast, and this does basically says that your weapon damage and anomaly damage against enemies that are affected by Ash Blast are increased by 40% and 30% respectively for 5 seconds. So pretty decent damage boost that you can get when you hit stuff with Ash Blast, and that means that your follow-up skills, whether that's Phaser or, you know, the 3 eruptions, that's just going to deal a whole bunch more damage. Giga Blast is good because eruptions radius is already kind of fucking cute, but then when you slap this on here, it doubles the radius essentially, and that's just it can literally blast out a whole room. And then we have Captain Hunter on here. Trash is, you know, no bueno for this build. Like, you murder that shit so fast, it's a joke. But bosses, captains, and everything like that, you really want to accentuate your damage against them, and Captain Hunter helps you over there. Pants, we are using Ashen Boost because we are using Ash Blast, so a lot of the time things are ashed. When we phaser things, they also ash, so this just helps us deal more damage to enemies that are ashed. We use Phaser Beam Size Matters on here because by default it's like a really accurate laser, but if you slap this on here, then it means that you can actually fire into clusters of enemies and hit them all with the Phaser Beam. Debris over here says that it throws the damaging debris at enemies, dealing an additional whichever amount of damage. This helps a little bit with trash clear and everything like that, and, you know, turns the eruption skill into from a really good skill on bosses to also something that can just basically spew out this additional damage and deal. Now, if you throw this into a cluster of trash, everything dies. Like, it's just how it is. And then we have Etna on here. Now, a big problem for the longest of times was the fact that eruption didn't cause burn for some reason. You know, fucking why, I don't know. So instead of changing the actual skill, what they did is they changed this mod, and this mod now says not only does it give you an extra eruption cost, but it also makes it so that eruption now causes burn to damage enemies, which is really good. Then we have arms and anomaly on here, and this is another part of this ramp up mechanic. So we have a tactical assault rifle. We shoot with that tactical assault rifle to ramp up mage's armor and, or sorry, mage's rage rather, and fortress, and then this just further on stacks onto that effect. Then we also have bullet kindling on here, which says that we deal more damage against enemies that are burning, which is also good because generally speaking, shit's going to be burning or ashen. That's it. Or it's going to have both of them. And then last but not least, when we get to the boots, we have Pompeii on here for our third eruption. I would say it's important to have, especially when we look at the PAX Tree later, you'll understand more, but it's important for us to have 3 eruptions because that just means that each cast of eruption before it finally goes on cooldown is more powerful than the one before that. We also have Unstoppable Force on here, which is the combination, as I mentioned, of changing, you know, armor piercing into resistance piercing and then into anomaly power. And then last but not least, we have Volcanic Armor on here as a survival mod. So this means that if you are pressured in a position, and that means that you can sometimes keep Phaser Beam as kind of like a oh shit ability, is if you're pressured and a lot of damage is about to come your way, then what you can do is you can engage Phaser, which actually reduces incoming anomaly damage and weapon damage by 20%, and when the skill is active, and for 2 seconds after, so you even have a little window after that. And because Phaser Beam spins up faster now, it means that this is a kind of like a way for you to avoid something that would have potentially been a kill shot to you, because remember, you're also going to be shooting the Phaser out, which deals damage, and so you'll get a bit of life back from that as well. Now when we get over to the skill tree itself, I think it's fairly obvious by now what we're using. We're using Ash Blast, Eruption, and Phaser Beam. And how I tend to play this is if I'm goofing around with trash and just moving through trials and everything like that, all I'm doing is I'm just dropping the abilities as they come off cooldown, which is super fast due to convection. And I just seed the battlefield with eruptions essentially to make sure that nothing makes it to me. However, when we are actually dealing with a boss, what I do is I go Ash Blast, Phaser Beam, and then Eruption, Eruption, Eruption. And that's essentially the combo. Now you'll have seen that in the footage at the beginning of the video, and that essentially basically kills everything outright immediately. And with your second follow-up after that, because after you do that combo, convection gets you all of your skills back almost immediately, you could just dump the combo on them again, and then it's bye-bye, all she wrote. When you get to the class tree itself, this is what you are trying to do, is you're trying to double dip into as many boosts as you can for your damage, as much anomaly power as you can get, and then last but not least, you want to go all the way to Graver Blaze, because this just gives you a flat out 30% base damage to your explosive skills, and Eruption is an explosive skill. So we are going to go down here, we're going to pick up anomaly power, we're going to get additional damage to mark targets, which means targets that you've hit and that are burning. And then immediately here we go all the way up, we get extinction, which deals more damage to enemies that are low life, and it's basically like execution damage. We do get incinerate, which says that when your burn ends, it inflicts ash, which again locks down those enemies, and you deal more damage against ashen enemies, so that helps you with that. You go up here, you do get trial against the ashes, which is more damage against ashen enemies. You get some more resistance piercing, and you get yourself hot situation. This is why Ash Blast is important for this, because not only is Ash Blast a good way for you to lock down enemies, block them out, deal more damage against them, but it's also a way for you to ramp up your anomaly power. When you hit this, then you get 45% additional anomaly power for 10 seconds. Then we go down here, we just pick up more additional damage nodes. There's a little bit more resistance survivability for you. This gives you more resistance piercing. And then we get Flames that burn twice, which means we deal more damage against elites, which is fantastic. We get some cooldown reduction, and last but surely not least, we get Graver Blaze, which gives us that additional explosive damage. Now all of this combined with a low PAX tree is what makes our eruptions hit so hard. So we're going to be getting Melting Point, which is again just more resistance piercing depending on our health level. We do get Master Exploder, which says that our skill damage is increased by 100% of our resistance piercing. We have a shitload of resistance piercing, so that's giving us more damage on those eruptions as well. We do also get Convection, obviously because we have to get further into the tree, but just because it's so goddamn good. This just reduces your cooldowns by 4 seconds when all other skills are on cooldown, and this has a 3-second cooldown. This is phenomenal. It is probably the reason why most pyromancer builds are so degenerate right now, and I actually don't want to say it loud enough so that PCF can hear me. I'm sure they're aware of it, but this shit is so fucking good. In some cases maybe too good, just saying. Then we get Backdraft, which is our anomaly power is increased by 30% for every skill on cooldown. So again, as you're doing your combo and you go Ash Blast, Phaser, now 2 skills on cooldown, which just makes those eruptions hit super hard. Now here's the reason why we have 3 eruptions. Trigger sequence says that activating an explosive skill increases the damage of the next one by 25. So when you go eruption, it goes 25, 50, 75. So that's why we have 3. If you only had 2, you would only ever get to 50, but this means that each eruption that you dump basically deals way more damage. Then when we get over to the Ascension tree itself, again, as always, since we are focusing on anomaly power, which focusing on anomaly damage, and that's our main source, you want to be picking up anomaly damage first. It's flat out damage on top, and then just start filling out essentially the rest. Now, if you struggle with any form of survivability, you can of course look at things like endurance or skill leech, but you do eventually want to get more armor piercing and more resistance piercing, because that again just bosses up our damage a little bit more. And once you have enough points, you can start looking at things like more damage to elites and less damage from elites, which is just a little bit more survivability. But the majority of your effort will probably be focused over here as you sort of just progress through this tree, because every single point you put into here just increases your aggression, your damage profile by that much. And that's for the video and the build. Personally, for me, I prefer the phaser build that I posted a couple of days back, just because I really do like the phaser skill the most probably, and it really does make for some insane assassination sniper shot phasers, which is really like an awesome way to play the game. For me, it's a lot of fun. However, this eruption build, I would say, is a happy sort of medium between that and something that deals a lot more AoE damage to a whole bunch of enemies, because eruption is so good at actually dealing damage to large groups of enemies as well. So I would almost say in a way that I would probably play the phaser build when I'm running solo, and I can get those really amazing almost one-shot kills essentially with it. And then when I'm playing in a group and I want to give a little bit more sort of survivability to the group and a little bit more AoE to the group and everything like that, then I would maybe go for this build rather. But all in all, you can't go wrong with either one of those two, because you are most probably not having any issues with trash and you're struggling with a build that is really good at murdering bosses. And both phaser solo on its own and this eruption build with phaser as a secondary are really good at doing that. Let me know in the comments down below what you are playing with pyro. I think there's so many pyro builds that you can do at the moment right now, and they're all so goddamn good. So let me know in the comments below how you're building your pyro, if you're still enjoying it, if you're playing another class, and what else you'd like to see me do a video on. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. It is just really important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.